about Dak a lot. You being a defensive guy, you look at him, you see a Heisman contender?
Yeah, absolutely, man. You know, you always gauge that as a player by how many problems a guy causes when you're trying to game plan for him and scout him out. And Dak has every dimension. The thing that separates him from a lot of guys in the country, he's two-dimensional, but he could be a pocket passer and deliver the ball as well as anybody in the country. And that's what you got to love about him. The added dimension that he adds by being able to run the football just makes him one of the most dangerous players in the country. And I hadn't picked him to be the Heisman because I think Todd Gurley is the best player in the country. But if it's going to be anybody else based off what we've seen up to this point, Dak has to be in that conversation.
You got a lot of history with the SEC. What have you seen from Mississippi State and really since Mullen took over, some of the changes?
You know what I love about this team is that they play old SEC football. Big physical guys on the defensive front, big linebackers, they come down and they hit people and they play with an edge. And that's what I like about them. And they play offense almost like they play defense. Physical, Dak's a big guy. He can break tackles, run through guys. You saw the running game get going against LSU out of those spread formations. Lewis is shifty guy. They have all the dimensions. The cornerbacks play physical and they come down and hit people. That's why I enjoy watching them. And that's why I think they have a shot to win it all. You know, that LSU victory was a great victory. Even though I don't think LSU is the team that we've grown accustomed to seeing, it's still tough to go into Death Valley and win a game. And the way they dominated the game, it had to send shockwaves to every other team in the SEC.
You talk about MSU's front seven, guys like Arthur McKinney, Preston Smith.
Oh, yeah. Preston Smith is a nightmare because he's quick and he's a big guy and physical. We talked about Chris Jones a lot before the season started. He's starting to show up now, and they play within the confines of what their body gives them. Benadryl doesn't get in the open field too much. He likes to keep guys boxed in so he can go down and make explosive tackles and make big plays from that aspect. And then up front, the push in the pocket. And that's going to be the key to this game. Look, Tim is going to talk about how well Dak has to play and what Kenny Hill has to do to play. And Joe and everybody else in the country will be talking about these offensive sides of the football. If Preston Smith, Chris Jones, and this defensive line, who, by the way, has depth, so they won't be tired going into the fourth quarter. If they can push the pocket and get Kenny Hill off the spot, A&M will have a tough day.
What's it take to implement the changes that they have now with the physical old SEC football when Dan got here to now? What's it kind of take?
Well, it's a mentality, and I think Mullen had Tebow as offensive coordinator in Florida, and he had a physical quarterback, a guy that he wasn't scared to run in between the tackles. Now, from a coach's perspective, you look at that and say, please stop running this guy inside the tackles. We need him, don't want him to get hurt, but he's built physically to be able to do that. And the attitude, I think it stems from Dak. He plays the game rough. He plays it with an edge. He gives guys a hard time to tackle him, and he puts pressure on you in the passing game. So the defense transfers. And look, as a defensive player, our saying was always, if our offense is good, we're a better defense. And that's the case here. When you get guys in positions where they get out of there, get off to that call sheet because your offense is maybe up 14, then you can let your animals loose and they can eat.
Where does the depth along this defensive line kind of stack up with the rest of the league?
I think it's right up there at the top because that was the issue for Texas A&M last year, being that they'll play them Saturday. They had no depth, and now you're starting to see them in the fourth quarter make key stops against Arkansas because guys are fresh and able to come in the game and move and push guys around. And that has to be a staple for coaches now in the SEC because you have offenses that are up-tempo. Big guys are going to get tired. So you need fresh legs to keep recycling through the whole game. So if it is close in the fourth quarter, guys can go in and be effective. You can have the greatest defensive lineman in the country, but if he's tired and running on empty, he won't impact the game. And you've been seeing it happen throughout the conference that the guys that are stepping up at the end of the game are these star players up front that have enough energy to make plays when it's late in the game.
What have you seen on the secondary? I know some people have said maybe it's the weak point of the defense. What have you seen on the Mississippi State secondary?
Well, I mean, it's probably their weakest strength because you can't point to them and say, hey, there's a Benadryl McKinney in the secondary, or there's a Preston Smith or a Chris Jones in the secondary. But they feed off of the guys that's in front of them. And sometimes that's all you need. And look, this defensive line gets pressure, that secondary is going to look like one of the best in the country. So it all plays hand in hand. They have the athletes. They're big. They're big and they're physical on the outside. You saw how they came down and played a bunch of bubble screens against LSU, making tackles in the open field. And with A&M, that's what you have to be leery of. They're getting playmakers the ball in space and hoping they can make one or two guys miss, and it turns into big plays. And I like the way these guys pursue. I like the way they tackle. And if they can do that and put A&M in some third and long situations, or even get off the field on third down, it'll give them that much more success going forward till the end of the game.